One of the most important topics in mathematics has to do with geometry. So we're going to talk about geometry and measurements, right? We have this nice tape here that a carpenter would use to build things. So in geometry, you're dealing with measurements and shapes, plane and plane geometry as well as solid geometry. This is called a math set. If you grew up in Nigeria, you remember this math set, right? American students don't get to enjoy having these. But I found this one when I was out in England. This was, I believe, at King's Cross. They had a place where you could buy things, and I saw Oxford mathematical set of mathematical instruments. This is excellent, complete and accurate, it says. In the math set, you would have things like, let's open it up here. You have a ruler, you have a protractor, you have your protractor, and then you have different things for drawing right triangles. You have a compass for drawing your circles there. You have a pencil sharpener, eraser, and we have two triangles here, right? This is an equilateral triangle. This is a right triangle. You can use this for different construction purposes. And so in geometry, you're working on different aspects of measurements, right? So we're starting with area and perimeter of shapes. And so one of the first things discussed in our book has to do with understanding different types of geometric figures. We've talked about rectangles, squares. Those are the type of things that we've talked about with young students. But one of the things you have to realize is the very beginning of geometry, in terms of some of the concepts that we teach, start with the work of Euclid. And Euclid wrote a book called The Elements of Geometry. In his book, he talks about points, lines, and planes. Basically, that's the beginning. Undefined terms, we call them in geometry. So we have points, lines, and planes. Think of it this way. You have points, you have a line, and you have a plane. On the plane, we can have points, we can have lines, right? So that's an important part of the discussion. And so in order to construct a rectangle or a square or a triangle, we need to understand the basic components of what builds those things, which goes back to points, lines, and planes. We also need to learn about something called rays and line segments. So a ray would have one endpoint and then the other part that goes forever. Notice that a line on both sides just goes forever, right? This you might remember things like a number line. A line segment would be something like this. We have this line segment AB, and it's from one point to another point. If you go to Euclid's book, the first book in his book of geometry, Elements of Geometry, you can learn about this in the first set of propositions he gives. In geometry, there's a lot of discussions about propositions. Here is a proposition, and they talk about proofs later on in geometry. But let's just talk about plane geometry. Let's look at some examples, and then we'll go from there. So length, perimeter, area of polygons, very important. Let's talk about that first. And then we'll talk about Pythagoras' theorem in the next segment. So for the perimeter of a shape, you're just looking for the length of everything around that shape. For the perimeter of this shape, for example, if this is 10 and this is 5, basically, if this is 5, this is 5, and this is 10, this is a rectangle, and so we have 10 and 10, 5 and 5. We basically add up the numbers. And let's say this is in centimeters. This is not drawn to scale, by the way. But let's say it's in centimeters, and then we have 30 centimeters. Great. What is the area of this rectangle, though? The formula for the area is the length times the width. Length times width. So that means you take the length, which is 10 centimeters. You take the width, which is 5 centimeters. You multiply those together. You get 50 centimeters squared. That's the length of the shape. So that's how we find the perimeter. And that's how we find the area. But there's a formula for perimeter that will make our work much easier. P is equal to 2 times length plus width. Feel free to pause this video and digest any of this as we go. But the perimeter of a shape is 2 times the length plus the width. So P is equal to 2 times 10 plus 5. What's 10 plus 5? 15. 15 times 2 is 30. So that's the perimeter of the shape. We know what the area is, and now we know what the perimeter of the shape is. This is the beginning of our understanding of geometry, or plane geometry. There are other shapes that you might encounter, such as triangles. And if someone gives you a triangle, You have the height of the triangle and you have the base of the triangle. If you know the side lengths of the triangle, you add them all together and that tells you the perimeter of the triangle. But how do you find the area of a triangle? So if the base is 15 and the height is 10, then you write the formula, A is equal to 1/2 base times height. The base is 15, the height is 10. You substitute those values in. So basically, we have 15 times 10, which is 150. We divide that by 2 and we get 75. That's the area of that triangle. So you're going to receive a formula sheet, or you can ask for one. You can look it up. You can look at it online too. Just say geometric formulas PDF. If you do that, you'll get a list of all the formulas you need. But we've looked at the quadrilaterals, such as squares or rectangles, where we use, P is equal to 2 times length plus width. We have the area, which is length times width, and that's how we get the area of the shape. We also have the triangle, where it's half base times height for the area, and then for the perimeter, we just add up all the sides. But what happens if you are given maybe the height and the base, but you don't know what this length is? Well, there's something called Pythagoras theorem. In our next video, we're going to talk about Pythagoras theorem. Feel free to subscribe and learn more as we go in our journey from counting to calculus. Welcome to the section where we discuss geometric concepts. Thanks for watching, and have a blessed day.